Alright, final thoughts. Since not all scent images are in our psyche are meaningful, not all of them are. A lot of them are meaningless, they don't mean anything, but some of them are. So I propose that we would do well to take the ones that do arise in our psyche seriously, as an act of love. As the psychologist James Hillman wrote, to know thyself means also to know thy peculiar images. So to know and feel our personal scent images, I think, is like seeing ourselves deeply through our own eyes in a mirror. That's kind of how I look at it. And lastly, before I get questions hurled at me, because I know that's coming up soon here, I'll explain the kind of strange, weird title of my dissertation, Smell Your Reflections, because it is kind of a weird title. The way I see it, to take in, to smell one's own reflections, so to speak, is to know oneself as a collection of images. These scent images are really part of our soul. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Start with a question from your internal reader, Dr. Alan Kilpatrick. You touched on this just a tiny bit, but maybe you can go into more detail here. What role could olfactory applications play in healing trauma?
That's a big one, and I thought about including that. It could be its own chapter, it could be its own book, really. You could use it as a starting point in trauma. There's actually work with PTSD, and that's one of the most difficult things to treat, is soldiers coming back from combat and they can't go to a barbecue, or they smell burnt rubber in the streets and they're having flashbacks. The difficult thing is it's really hard to reverse those initial associations, but I think it can be done. It requires kind of a reprogramming standpoint of reintroducing a different association to that. Maybe some biofeedback could be helping, but I think that you could incorporate sense for trauma in a number of different ways. Trauma is a very broad word anyway, but I think that it's a portal. It's an access point. You can start with an experience somebody had. Let's say they grew up in a violent household and there was a lot of violence there. You might help them find an image from their past that was safe, that was comforting, and they can use that to hold on to as they're going through some of those memories. Or if they're having trouble accessing unconscious traumas, you can use that as a portal to connect to some of those things in the past that were really difficult and unpleasant. Whether you actually have the scent, I think that's a little more difficult, because most of these scents are, what's the smell of, remember the smell of your attic, your living room, your kitchenette house? Like, could you even explain it? There's no replication of that, probably. You couldn't find an essential oil of, like, the basement of your house, right? So how do you do that? And that's where the imagination comes in. But absolutely, I think you could try to incorporate it into trauma. But it's tricky. I've tried a little bit, but it's worth exploring. It really is. And I think it's powerful because it's subtle. And if you start with something that's safe first, I think you have a better chance of going a little bit deeper with that.
Would you suggest then that you don't just evoke the traumatic smell,
for sure,
obviously, but you evoke a tonic, a smell
I
that's
would. Yeah, but that's the case when you're doing therapy or you're diving deep into dark stuff. You start with an ally, a helper, something safe that's got your back first before you start digging up the dark stuff first. So when it comes to scent, yeah, I would pick 1 or 2 or 3 smells that are comforting. Maybe even bring them into the therapy session. A blanket or a piece of clothing from spouse that maybe died, or something that's going to ground you safe first before you go and venture into more difficult territory.
Thank you. Hans, questions?
Yeah, let me say a few words about how we got together.
Good story.
Brian
Good
and I, because he contacted me out of the blue. I've been working on olfactory perception for many years, but more from the literary linguistic perspective. Brian obviously comes more from the somatic, psychoanalytical, depth psychology perspective. So we come at it from different angles, but I thought it was it was a good move on his part to choose me because we complemented each other in certain ways, but also in critical ways. Because my approach to the sense of smell is through language. And in language, we have a notorious deficit in most Western languages that I know of, and others as well, of a precise vocabulary to talk about the sense of smell.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Brian somehow overcame this difficulty. He wrote, whatever, 200,000 words and 6 chapters and so on. So it's all but what I'm interested in, and that's the question I'm going to ask you, you talk about various sort of translations or transformations from an emotion, affect, into an image, or the association with an image. The soul as a sort of a collection of images. But ultimately, whenever we want to come to some sort of understanding among each other about what's going on, we will default to language. It is our conceptual, technical tool that we all more or less understand. And so there's this other translation of everything you've said into language, and representation, characteristic enough, is also in language and not some flares of smell going on. So if you could say a little bit more how you thought about that last translation, which is also the one you need available in therapy.
Absolutely.
Also, you just mentioned in connection with trauma.
Yes.
Stimuli can be brought in, but some are hard to find. Some are not the ones that the patient suffers from or was exposed. So it all has to happen in language.
Yes, very good. Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I did have a section of my dissertation on language. I didn't cover it in the presentation. But Hans is right. It is actually a very important area to cover because, like the color spectrum, we don't have that for smells. There isn't anything that's been categorized. There's been a lot of things proposed about categories of smells and qualities, but there's no consensus on it. They're all over the place. And he's right in that it is very difficult to talk about smells. And that's what I alluded to a little bit earlier, that the scents have to be linked with something else. You know, we think you smell the scent of strawberry, you either think about the fruit, you think about a candle, you think about it's connected to something. And so to actually try to describe, like I mentioned, what did the living room of the house you grew up in smell like? How do you do that? You have to be like a and that's where the literature comes in. So when you're working with somebody, you're trying to speak to an experience that you had with the smell. I tended to, and I do this with my patients, is to start with the images and get as particular and concise as possible with adjectives and details about what might be connected to that. Using similes and metaphors. It smells like this. It smells like that. It reminds me of this. And you start making connections, and it's as close, you're kind of hovering around the perimeter because you can never quite get, even like a vanilla, there's like 50,000 kinds of vanilla, so which vanilla are you actually smelling? And it maybe changes over time anyway. So you have to be able to round the perimeter and at least give some associations or something where it smells like that one tree, in the backyard, but it also kind of smells like, the locker room or the shirt or my dog. You have to bridge it with other senses or objects or people that can at least give you a springboard into going that. And so the more imaginative and with adjectives and language and even verbs, the smell felt like it was like a shark stabbing in my stomach, or the smell, it seemed very round, like a volleyball. I mean, you can get really imaginative, and I think that's as close as you're going to get without falling back on really dry abstractions or terms that leave you kind of empty. Like it smells good. What is that? What does that mean? Good for what and how? In what way? Good how? Right?
I would go even further to argue that precisely the fuzziness, the associative and connotative nature of olfactory perception when it appears in images, and then again when it appears in languages, that's for therapy an ideal sort of interface. It's not one-on-one, but you can sort of try to find the link that is crucial by twisting and turning a little bit the linguistics around.
Yeah, playing with the language.
You hit on what really the issue is.
And it's like, that's it. Yeah, it's just playing. It's playing with it. The back and forth playing.
I think that's one of the key ingredients.
Yeah, I would say so.
And that's all thanks to him that I've come to this insight. Because as I said before, my original approach to the sense of smell was strictly literary and textual. So thank you. It was great to work with.
Thanks, Hans. Thanks for that. Yeah, appreciate it.
That was nice. Okay, I'm going to propose a thought experiment.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Describe for us what your dissertation smells like.
You wouldn't do that, would you? You know, it's springtime, and it's fresh, and the rain's dried up, but there's new little green sprouts that are popping up through the surface. I can smell a little soil. There's a sense of cleanness and freshness, and a sense of renewal, and crispness. The air is crisp. It's a little cool, but the sun's out, still warm, and there's a feeling of aliveness and an anticipation of what's ready to grow for the rest of the spring and into summer and the early stages of maturity. Yes, that's the message.
Nice. Was it always that way? Were there times in the process where it took on a smell of disgust?
Yes. Writing the beginning was the most difficult. The second chapter I wrote in the summer of last year, or the summer before that. Summertime, I wanted to be outside. Writing inside was torture. So it was like, I felt like burning. I was like writing in the inside, I just wanted to be outside. I felt like heat, and I wanted to like burn the computer. It was fiery. Didn't like it. The end of the dissertation, kind of difficult too, and I felt like this is all crap. And I had the image of shit and manure. And I'm like, this is crap. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, what is this stuff? Yeah, I was having images of crap. But then I kept remembering the alchemist image of the diamond in the crap. And I'm like, it's there somewhere. I hope this is worth something or other. And Bridget helped me just keep plugging along. She's like, it's good, you're right. Just keep going, finish it. And then finally, the editing and the proofreading, I had images of ropes, because I wanted to just strangle myself and name folks in the dissertation office. It was a little challenging editing and proofreading. I'm not a detail-oriented person, so that was maddening to edit, but I felt like I wanted to strangle myself and my lack of clarity of editing and commas and formatting and all that stuff. I'm like, can I just hang me and be done with this kind of thing? And Jennifer's like, just keep going, do the end, it's okay, finish it. I'm like, okay, untie the noose, relax.
Thank you. That was a thought experiment.
You would do that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So I was curious about your comment about, I know there was some struggle in the end of the dissertation. It's very common where people just want to be done, and what they shortchange is that final chapter on implications and findings. And they shortchange really owning their own work, the implications of their own work. And I see it all the time when I edit, push back at you, like,
yeah, and I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you did that.
Deeper, claim your work. So my question for you, because you mentioned getting hit by a bicycle. So if you were to get hit by a bicycle, and unfortunately lose your life, another thought experiment, what would you say the greatest gift of your dissertation research was? The biggest insight that you have to offer the world through your work?
It gave me so much more appreciation to the world of aromas. That we are in a world that smells. That some people have lost their sense of smell. And maybe they didn't know it before, or they lost it afterwards. But that as humans in this life, being embodied, that we have all our senses, and that we get the opportunity to smell things. I love smells. I would actually rather be blind than lose my sense of smell. I really would. First would be hearing. If I couldn't listen to music, forget about it. But sense of smell would be my second. I would be really, really bummed out if I couldn't smell. So the appreciation that I got for aromas in our world, I mean, just this dissertation, I mean, I walked in here and I'm like smelling the room because I want to remember this. Like, you know, smells are a part of human experience, and I don't think I really appreciated it as much as I did before the dissertation, as I started fantasizing and going into my own past and going into the things that were important to me, talking about it, researching it, of how lucky we are that we get to smell stuff. You know, that's good for me, just that I got to do that. I got to smell that jasmine at the night at the ocean. See you later.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to challenge you on that answer though, because that's what was in it for you.
Yeah.
What's in it for the world of academia? What's your greatest gift that you've given to this community of depth psychologists, somatic psychologists?
I hope it's that smells aren't forgotten, and I don't think they are. They're just not given as much attention. And I think you can use them in literature, you can use them in poetry, you can use them in stories, you can use them in everything in our human experience. And that, you know, it can infuse every part of your life. It's just another, you know, we're such a verbal and auditory culture, and that's fine, but just don't forget about smells. They're there, and they're more powerful than we think. And so